Danilo, and once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. Live social media, all across social media. Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Joe and I are going to do everything we can do to make sure that we hold true to this date and this time every single week. We talk about some stories, have a little fun. Joe, poke a little fun at people. I mean, especially when you're talking about politics and culture, there's a lot to point your finger at, all right, and have a little bit of fun. Remember, wherever you're seeing this video now, we're going live on Rumble right now, but we're all over social media. So wherever you see us, Rumble, Twitter, X, let's call it X, Facebook, YouTube till they take us down. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. So, Joe, wanted to talk to you about a couple things tonight, right? We got a couple clips to look at. Let's start with a federal judge in Canada, okay? So basically, there was a decision released this past Tuesday by federal court justice Richard Mosley, said that the invocations of the Emergencies Act led to the infringement of constitutional rights. Now, everybody knows, Joe, actually, you give everybody the backdrop, and then we'll play a clip. So what is the Freedom Convoy? Let everybody know who doesn't know.
Well, bottom line is the truckers, as everyone, who's following the news, I mean, the truckers stood up for freedom. I mean, they were getting locked down and they froze their bank accounts. I mean, how in a democracy can a government go to a private bank, a company, and say, you can't get your money? I mean, that's a totalitarian act.
Joe, at the end of the day, I just want to ask you something. I'm going to ask you a question. At the end of the day, they drove their crime was that they drove across the country, and when they got to Ottawa, they double parked. I mean, it's basically a parking
ticket. The crime was they disagreed with the powers.
No. You know where I'm going with that.
No, I totally agree. There was no crime. I mean, you have a right to protest. That's what a democracy is. They just redefine the word for their own convenient purposes. I don't know how people listen. You don't have to agree with this. But it's dangerous to allow the government to pull the trigger on any of it. And that's where I don't understand how people can't see that. I really can't, because they're coming after you next.
I don't understand how anybody thinks that they're going to protest the government. Let's keep it with Canada for a second in any way. If the government, if Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland, they targeted people, they froze their bank accounts, what makes you think if you protest anything in Canada, you're not going to get your bank account frozen?
That's if they could get around the law and work with a bank to freeze your bank account. There could be the sky's the limit. You didn't get the vaccine. You didn't vote the way they wanted you to vote. You bought certain things. You go to certain churches. The sky is the limit.
They could do whatever under that. They have the pretext to do whatever it is they want. And I wish people would get it through their head. When people say, well, they don't have a problem with me because I'm pro-choice and I'm okay with gay marriage. Let me explain something to you. Okay? Those people who think that way. If you disagree with them on anything, they will come after you. Don't you? You think all those, Joe, you think any of those truckers voted for Trudeau? I bet some of them did. I would bet my bottom dollar that some of all those truckers voted for Trudeau. It was a protest. If a Republican that I voted for does something egregious and I go down to Washington and I protest, who cares whether or not I voted for the person? You know where I'm going with that?
It's just a dangerous act, and it was done in plain sight, and it should disturb people. I mean,
let's play the clip. Go ahead, Joe.
No,
play the clip, and then we'll come back.
The federal court has ruled the Liberal government's decision to invoke the Emergencies Act amid the trucker protests in Ottawa in 2022 violated Canada's charter.
We respect very much Canada's independent judiciary. However, we do not agree.
I think we're having some problems with the live clip on the Rumble stream. It's all right. Ultimately, like I said, it's a dangerous move. It was, to be truthful with you,
in the ruling, the judge says the move was unreasonable and outside the scope of the law.
Hold on,
the case was brought forward by the Canadian Civil Liberties Association.
Yeah, so the clip was still playing. So we might be having a couple issues. We're just going to keep moving it along. Go ahead, Joe. You were saying.
No, it's just disturbing. It was done in plain sight. But in Canada, this isn't like some Eastern European quasi-communist state. I mean,
Right.
It's Canada. And frankly, he got away with it. He got away with it. He won. He shut it down. He said, no, you're not going to protest because you're disagreeing with my agenda. Sorry.
But then these same people, Joe, and this is where I'm talking. We're talking to regular people out there. Do you really listen to the media, to Justin Trudeau, to Joe Biden, to the Gavin Newsoms of the world when they actually say that we're a danger to democracy? If you shut down protests, you're the authoritarian, Justin. You're the authoritarian, Christia. You're the one who's shutting down free speech. I'm not telling people that they can't walk into effing Planned Parenthood, Joe. They walk and they don't care, no matter who's standing in front. I don't tell Black Lives Matter they can't march down the street. I tell them they can't burn down buildings. And I want to talk about that for a second. I want your opinion. Now, I know it's America and Canada, but look at the way the left, because the left in Canada and the left in America is the same, all right? They're cut from the same cloth. In America, the protesters burned down cities and shot cops. These guys drove their trucks and double parked in Ottawa. Please explain it to me, Joe, because this is where you want to grab people in the media and say, stop telling me you're objective. Stop telling me you're in favor of democracy. Stop telling me you're in favor of free speech, because you are not. If Black Lives Matter can burn down Minneapolis or Seattle, you're going to tell me there's a real problem with these guys driving their trucks across Canada and then double parking when they get to Iowa? Joe, help me. Joe, help me.
Well, you know what it is? The press has just co-opted the word democracy. I mean, people should...
They don't know what it means.
Well, actually, they do know what it means. How they interpret it is, it's for me. It's democracy for me. It's not for you.
Right. As long as my voice is heard,
that's right.
I don't care whether or not your voice is heard.
And that's, again, even if you don't agree with the other side, this should disturb you. If you're an objective person, if you want to live in a free nation, because ultimately what's going to happen is the pendulum swings from right to left constantly in politics. They're going to get the dictator they think that Donald Trump is now. You're going, and he's not.
They're going to get the real one.
You're going to get a real one.
Right.
You're going to get a real one. And that's the crazy part about all of this. Mm-hmm. You actually are going, because I got news for you. Donald Trump was a reaction to Barack Obama. He was. You are going to get a reaction, and you're not going to like it, because eventually, you will get a conservative president. Whether it's this time, whether it's next time, whether it's the next time.
The difference, Joe, though, and listen, I'm always in favor of going quid pro quo with the left, but in this case, I'm not. I don't see any conservatives shutting down free speech. I really don't. Okay, I don't see conservative outlets. I don't see social media. Elon Musk is getting called a fascist because he wants more free speech. YouTube is considered the bastion of free speech, and they want less free speech. Joe, we're not idiots. Now, again, they know that we're not idiots. But then again, that's why they have to pull out all their minions to say that what we are is deplorable. Because they know they don't have an argument. If you're Facebook or Twitter, Facebook or YouTube, and you're taking down videos of people who express opinions you don't like, and you're going to call the people that run Rumble and let's say Elon Musk over at Twitter, you're going to call them fascists, and they actually promote free speech. Joe, people have to start caring a little bit more about this. You're not changing I like to tell all these conservatives, Joe, you're not changing a damn thing until you take the federal government, you sick them on the media, and you sick them on social media. You're not going to change anything on that level, okay? They're going to continue to get away with what they get away with, just like they could get away with the narrative that the truckers in Canada are fascist, racist, white supremacists, and Black Lives Matter is a civil rights organization.
Well, ultimately, the truckers just wanted to work, and they thought that, frankly, the pandemic restrictions were draconian. That was their crime. And that's
Yeah.
why they protest. But by the way, time has shown that they were right. Everything that they said, not everything,
Right.
because let's. I'm not like I don't deny that people died. Listen, people died in the pandemic, like of COVID. 1 million people died in America. It was real. My friend's father died not too far from me. He said the hospital people were in the parking lot. They were tense. I don't doubt it. My point is this, though. What they did to try to prevent a lot of the deaths, the supposed deaths they were preventing, I think it was far worse than than actually the disease itself.
Of
They
course, that's the
crippled
argument.
people.
I've always tried to understand that if I'm talking to somebody, look, we all know COVID was overblown. The reaction to it, not only was it overblown, it was deliberately overblown. Whether it was Andrew Cuomo, whether it was Wittmar, Gretchen Wittmar in Michigan, Gavin Newsom, no matter where it was, we knew what they were doing. Murphy in New Jersey, we knew, Joe, what they were doing. Okay. That doesn't take away from the fact that COVID killed people. But my argument is that at the end of the day, COVID didn't kill people. The response in many, not all, in many cases is what killed people. I know somebody very dear to me had unfortunately, a father, late 70s, okay, and went to the hospital for COVID. Immediately, they intubated him. He was dead in a half hour. I mean, I don't get it. You're a hospital, and like this is the treatment that you're saying that people need. And when people question that, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just a Neanderthal. You don't have a PhD on the wall. We do. Let me tell you something. COVID and the deaths from COVID, Joe, lie at their feet. And let me tell you something. People are hip to it, Jojo. People are hip to it. They're not going to put up with any more new vaccine mandates. They don't want to hear about it. I already am prepared. I told my wife today, I'm telling my boss, they forced me in New York to take the vaccine when I was working in New York. Okay, I had no backup. I had to do it. I couldn't afford it. Now, not that I can afford it now, but I'm going to tell my boss flat out, if you force me to take the vaccine, I'm going to get a constitutional lawyer and I'm going to sue you. I'm going to file a lawsuit. You start threatening lawsuits, Joe, by the way, whether or not they'll go anywhere. You start threatening lawsuits on that level to corporate America, they'll start waking up, especially if it's a lot of people doing it. I'm not getting their vaccine. Joe, I'm going to give you the final word on this segment.
I don't think they're going to go down that route because there's a lot of people who feel the same way. I think they got away with it once. That doesn't mean they're not going to try another crisis with regard to, it worked once. Why not try it again? I mean, to your point, Joe, they took something which, again, people did die. I'm not like on either side of it, you know, because it is legit. People did die. With that said, though, I think they used it for their benefit and they crushed people.
Well, you said it before. It's the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of
humanity. And that is absolutely accurate. They crushed people. They crushed regular people. And frankly, they used it to change how we vote in America. American voting has changed. Why are we still using paper ballots? That's the question I ask people now.
Joe, your guess is
we go to football games, 90,000 people sitting in a stadium. You're telling me you cannot go and vote? Can't you at least be objective and ask yourself that question? Why don't we show ID when we vote?
Because then you can't cheat, Joe. Because then you can't cheat.
You can't have what's it called? People who came across the southern border to vote, and that's why they did it. And,
well, Joe, not for nothing. We're in an election year. Listen, I'm of the opinion. Look, I hold out hope. We're Catholic men. We're Christians. We're appealing to all people of goodwill. I know at the end of the day, God will have his day. I get it. I'm holding out no hope. Not because of the Democrats. Those people, like we said a million times on the show, those people are scorpions. They sting. That's what they do. That's their nature. That's what they do. They sting the frog, okay? They try to convince you they're not going to sting you, but then they do as soon as they get the opportunity. All right? I don't blame them. That's what they are. I blame Republicans and establishment conservatives, those who would vote for Nikki Haley, which we'll get into in a minute, okay? I blame them. They just go along, Joe. Look, how do you go into politics, Joe? Look, Joe, let me paint a picture for you, and then we'll move on. Nikki Haley on one hand, Barack Obama, both with no money in the bank, both now with oodles and oodles and oodles of cash after having been in government. Joe, please help me. Help me, Joe.
Well, the problem, I'll be honest with you, I can't even blame them because at least they're getting rich. I blame regular people. Why do you stand for it? Like, why do you allow your states, New Jersey included, to not be able to show ID? You can, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Why do we have paper ballots? In India, the largest democracy in the world, they paint your finger.
Right.
They get to figure out who wins in one day. And we can't?
We can't.
I mean, no, it's not about we can't, we won't.
We won't.
And we tolerate it as people. And it's dangerous. No, there are so many people that don't have confidence in our elections. And they paint it like, oh, you're a crazy person. No. The fix is easy.
They just, Joe, there's a, I didn't get all the details, so I apologize to our audience here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Please, wherever you're seeing this video, please share it, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X. There's a video, an audio going around with Carrie Lake. Did you see this in Arizona? Everybody knows I'm in Arizona now, right? She's being bribed by a Republican. I forgot the guy's office. I apologize to everybody ahead of time. He's a bigwig in the Republican establishment in Arizona, bringing her into the back room and offering her a bribe to get out of politics. They don't want to hear people like us, Joe. And let me say, love or hate Carrie Lake, that woman's got some stones. She speaks from the heart. She talks about election integrity. She talks about all of it, okay? She was offered a bribe by a Republican, Joe, not a Democrat, not George Soros, okay? Not those people, a Republican. The Republican establishment offered, she goes, Joe, real quick, she said, offer me 20 million, 30 million. What is it? Basically, I'm paraphrasing. She said, what is it good? What does it do for me to go down that road? No, to sell my soul. She didn't say sell her soul, but to sell my soul. So it shows you what the people that come and ask for our vote on election day say, Joe, they're not going to do a damn thing about it, about election integrity or any of it.
Well, that's where I blame the people, because we shouldn't stand for it. And again, listen, let the better person win, but let the people speak. There is no reason. If you think that they created this system, i.e. paper ballots, to make democracy reign, you're crazy. It's preventing democracy because you're allowing illegal immigrants to vote. That's why the southern border, I'll be honest with you, Trump says his first day in office, if he becomes president, he's going to be a dictator. Two things he's going to do. He's going to drill and build the wall. I got news for you. You don't have to build the wall. I'll tell you how to stop the migration. You stop them from voting, and they'll immediately prevent them from coming in because they don't care about them.
You can't vote. You can't
if
vote.
They
You're
make
not a
it where
citizen.
they can't vote, where you have to show up, you have to show ID, it's paper ballots, you have a cop inside the inside the voting location, you have cameras to count when the count takes place, you have to validate where you live, signature verification, all that stuff. Very simple.
Right.
The migration stops. The migration stops. You don't need a wall. You don't need it.
Well, I will tell you this. The wall wouldn't hurt. Let's move on. Let's stay on democracy, Joe. Trump won Iowa. We know that. Pretty handily. We know that. Vivek dropped out. We know that. Ron DeSantis dropped out. We know that. They're both supporting Trump. We know that. Okay. And then they go to New Hampshire. Trump wins big in New Hampshire. Okay. Nikki Haley is toast. She's going to go to South Carolina. Tim Scott has already endorsed Donald Trump. Okay. Those good people of South Carolina, they see Nikki Haley for who she is. She is an oligarch. She is a member of the Uniparty. She, Joe, has nothing but contempt for people like you and me and Jonathan and everybody listening to us at the front line with Joe and Joe. Nothing. Okay. Joe, Trump's the nominee. I don't care what ace in their sleeve they try to pull out. It ain't going to happen. Trump is going to be the nominee. I'm going to just wait. Well, let's play the clip and then we'll come back.
Tonight, all eyes on New Hampshire. The last polls just closing in the first in the nation primary, and the race has already been called on the Republican side. The Associated Press has just called this race for former President Donald Trump. And now we are keeping a very close eye on the margins for Nikki Haley. Our political reporter Greg Lee keeping an eye on those New Hampshire results. Greg, we have already a projected winner, and if this is not close, I mean, this could be it for Haley.
Yeah, this is a big moment for Nikki Haley's campaign and her viability. Many of these polls closed at 4 p.m. our time, and it did not take long after the final ones closed just a few minutes ago to make a call. Mr. Trump is now the first Republican candidate to win open races in Iowa and New Hampshire since they began leading the election calendar in 1976. I want to give you a look at the numbers from the Granite State as they come in. Again, Haley's future riding on these margins. The AP declaring Trump the...
Let's come back. Let's come back. So here's the thing, Joe. It's not even a question. Now I know a lot of people might think, and I want your opinion on this. In the past, a long time ago, I might have thought about voting for Nikki Haley in a situation like this when I was less politically astute. Let's put it like that. Okay. But as St. Paul said, as I grew up, I learned to put away childish things. Voting for Nikki Haley is childish. Okay. You want to know why? Because you think you're going to get something different than Joe Biden, but you're not. You're going to get you're going to get your abortion is staying right where it is. Okay. She's already said there's a constitutional right or a constitutional right or something along those lines to going through transgender surgery. Even if you're a kid, the government's got nothing to do with it. The government should back out. So we know that she's not standing up to China. She's getting us into foreign wars. It's the Democrat playbook right down the line. So the thing is this, even though she got, I forgot what the final numbers were, but let's say she got 45%. Joe, those people that went out and voted for her, they're going to vote for Donald Trump. 90% of those people that went out just to try to maybe ruffle the feathers, those New Hampshire people are a little crazy anyway. They probably went and voted for her to try to like mix things up a little bit. At the end of the day, Joe, this is Donald Trump's party. And I don't care about all the denial for the last couple of years and through the Biden administration. It's still his party, and he's going to get the nomination.
Well, I would agree. Here's the deal. She got a lot of money. The coach brought
a ton.
So she's good. She's not good. Ultimately, politicians drop out when they don't have money. She has the establishment Republican Party behind her. She's got tons of money. She's also counting on this. In other states, Democrats are allowed to vote. Not all states. So she's counting on that, as in the Democrats coming out and supporting her as opposed to Donald Trump. Also,
is that the case in New Hampshire, Joe?
No, but in other states, Donald Trump, first of all, in Nevada and South Carolina is going to crush her, even more so than New Hampshire. He's way ahead. But on Super Tuesday, there are other states that basically allow Democrats to vote. She's counting on that. And she's also up, keep this in mind too, amongst independents by 15% on Donald Trump. That's what they say.
I know, and I know what you're saying, but at the end of the day, they're going to independence. See, people like they like to place over importance on independence, but then sometimes they place under importance on independence. Independents a lot of times are people who agree with us, maybe not on everything. But when Nikki Haley starts getting up in front of those independents, says we have to fund Ukraine because Putin is a dictator and we have to send money from here. And she does this. I'm not exaggerating, Joe. If you see her, like she does all these strange hand motions and everything else, she'll start trying to pitch the independents. And I'm using Ukraine as an example. So we have to start here because it's our freedom and we have to give that money to Ukraine because Putin is an existential threat and like all these things. Those independents are going to go like this, Joe. I'm not voting for this.
I hope so. I do think that there is a group of people who don't pay particular attention to the details. There's many people like that, actually. And they feel that she's not as like in your face. They're sick of like the confrontation. Believe it or not, there is a segment of the population. Do I think she could legitimately win? No. Is it Trump's party? Absolutely. But they have something up their sleeve. They're going to hold out and try to potentially even go all the way to the convention. She also may be playing a game of attrition, hoping that they could sink him legally, and then she just is the last person standing.
then Joe, she's disqualified then because she's stupid. I'm sorry. I know you don't like when I use those words, but I'm going to say it like this. Does she really think that Fannie, what's her name in Georgia, or Jack Smith, or any of these prosecutors going after Trump, does she really think? Now, she's supposed to be smart, Joe. We're the dummies. Remember, Joe, you're dumb. So am I. Okay. Nikki Haley is supposed to be. Does she really think Donald Trump is going to jail? Is she so stupid
Believe it or not, you
deluded
could
to
still
think that
run
Donald
from
Trump
jail.
is going to jail?
You could actually still be the president and be in jail. But here's the thing. I personally think they're just not going to. They're not going to allow it. I don't know what they're going to do. It could even be kill him. But because they feel, if you ask me, that they're like an animal in the corner.
Joe, let me pitch something over to you. I'm going to pitch something real quick. I'm going to pitch it right back to you. What about now? I got a friend of mine who's really hammering me hard on voting for RFK. Your thoughts on the same fate that might await him that you just said might await Donald Trump? Throwing that out.
Well, I don't think he has a chance. Like, in terms of, he might get 11% of the vote, and he'll take some from Trump, some from Biden.
I think he takes more from Biden. I think
But
he takes more
even
from Biden.
still, I mean, like ultimately, he doesn't have a chance. I respect him as a human. I'm not voting for him, but I do think he's an American. Like, in terms of, he believes in the country and the fabric of the nation.
Oh, he's of his family. Now people forget that JFK, okay, was an America firster. See, America First goes back to the early part of the 20th century. It didn't just occur under Donald Trump. John F. Kennedy was an America firster. These men, who we would disagree with on a number of things, were Americans that cared about America. Some people said that that's what got John F. Kennedy killed. RFK, how about this, Joe? I'm going to throw this out to you. It won't be Biden, but let's just assume it is on the Democrat side. If it's Biden, Haley, and RFK, I'm voting for RFK. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, I'd write in Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
Oh, no. I ultimately I agree with you on that.
That's what I'm writing it. I
agree with that. But if you ask me on the level of pure politics, first of all, she's going to give us abortion. She's not going to do anything to abolish abortion, nor is RFK. But RFK bucks his party because he wants restrictions on abortion, which makes him an enemy of his party. So in that particular case, if I vote for him, less babies will die in America than will under Joe Biden. Okay. So on the abortion issue, Nikki Haley, RFK, kind of a wash for guys like us, because she's going to do the same thing he's going to do. But guess what? COVID, vaccines, foreign wars. Joe, he's frighteningly aligning himself with my view and your view, because he's for the same things that I don't want either. I'm saying that if push came to shove and I had to vote for somebody, if you gave me Joe, certainly I'm never in a million years, okay, cut my head off. I'm never voting for Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris or anybody else they put up there, okay? But if you give me Nikki Haley or RFK, I'm voting for RFK, Joe. I got to be honest with you.
I would probably, again, I think he's a bomb too, because he embraces all the green economics, which is going to destroy the middle class. What RFK does bring out, to a degree, as well as Donald Trump, there's a great divide between the establishment in America and the world, in all of the Western civilization, and the people. That's why populist movements are popping up all over the world. It's not just here. They have an agenda. I mean, we're going to speak to Rusty Reno on our show in Veritas very shortly. He says, and we're going to talk about this when we meet with him, that we're headed, the West, into a post-democratic era, whereby the establishment usurps the elections for the model, which is green economics. Because
Joe, I got to throw something out to you. We're told that's been tried by the Nazis, by the communists, okay, and that we defeated them, and democracy won. No, that's a line of crap as far as I'm concerned.
Because you're seeing this in Europe. You saw it in Germany. Germany disqualified a candidate. They disqualified a candidate, took him off. They said basically, you don't represent our ideas. And that's exactly
the ideas of the state, not the ideas of the people.
That's my point. And that is where he's saying we're going into a post-democratic era. I think he's spot on. Because here's the deal. They pull the levers of power in every institution. It's not just in government. It's in banking. It's in Hollywood. It's in everything. Right. All the power centers they control. They're dead set on having basically this green economic model. Bill Gates, you listen to the messaging coming out of Davos. You watch, if you go into Bloomberg and look at like trending in any type of equity, they have ESG ratings. Mm-hmm. Bloomberg has an ESG. Right. Environmental social governance, which is basically a tool that governments get around the laws, partnering with business.
Right.
Any person that's for that, frankly, that is so dangerous. That is a totalitarian tool. And that is what we're going to see, because Vermont, by 2030, you cannot have a gas car legally. You can't register it. By 2035 in California, you cannot have a gas car.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Then what happens to Ford and General Motors? Let's say
well, they're going to have to adapt. They're going to
but then they're going to have to go up against Elon Musk and some others,
well,
and that might cost them their very survival.
And here's another thing, and we see this in Canada. We've seen this in Europe. If you can't heat your house, if you can't afford a car, they don't care, because they want a lower population. This is more messaging that's come out of Davos. People have to pay attention.
Let me throw something out there.
Like, if you are devastated, like you're a truck driver. You're a truck driver in Canada. You're a truck driver in Mexico. You're a truck driver in France. If your family is devastated, they don't care.
They don't give a damn.
And that's what people have to get through their head.
But here's the thing, Joe. Whether or not even people who vote for some of these people realize it or not, Western civilization and the idea that has permeated Western civilization going back to after the fall of the Roman Empire it was Catholic. Please don't X out of there. All you people out there were Protestant. Let's call it Christian just for ecumenical reasons. But the idea is, under a Christian worldview, Joe, that all human beings are made in the image and likeness of God and therefore entitled to certain rights. Our founding documents are infused with that all over the place, okay? Whether they be deists, whether they be theists, whether it's John Adams or Patrick Henry, okay, or Thomas Paine. The bottom line is the recognition that there's something special about you. Even the people that vote for them, Joe, vote for these oligarchs and their minions and their tools, like Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden and the rest of them, okay? Know that in their mind, they say to themselves, yeah, but my Constitution protects me because I'm made in the image and likeness of God. What I would tell them is, go check a video. Go check a video. Joe, you mentioned Davos and the World Economic Forum. If you want to hear, okay, the voice of someone who I think represents pure evil, and I mean, Joe, I don't use that lightly, Joe. I don't, okay? Yuval Harari. That guy, there's a video out right now. It's going all over social media where he says, open up a human being. You see a clump of cells. That's all it is. Basically making the argument that the new atheists like Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens and Dawkins and Dennett and what's his name? Peter, what's his name from Princeton? They say there's nothing special about you, Joe. Nothing. You're a clump of cells. And that's not just resigned to babies in the womb. That's resigned to you, too. There is no God. Therefore, if I have the will to power, I'll do whatever I want. And that's exactly, Joe, what this guy, Yuval Harari, who's basically Joe Klaus Schwab's henchman, he's like his little dweeb guy who gets there and goes out to all those TED Talks and all that kind of stuff. Joe, it's always the same impulse. It's always convincing people that there's nothing special about them. And ultimately, I think that underlies our problem. I know that was a long rant, Joe. I love you. I know it was a lot, but I love your thoughts on that.
Well, ultimately, this is the void created by those who have turned their back on God. I mean, if Western civilization still embrace the triune God, there's no room for the World Economic Forum. These are secular humanists, and to your point, it's dangerous. And sadly, when people finally realize it, it could be too late. And what do I mean by that? Digital currency. You're trapped in the spider web, which means that if they control your bank account through ESG, just like they did to the truckers, they just delete you. You can't access your money.
And what does that do? Just educate our audience, Joe. Now, some people will say, but what does that mean? What do I have to do to not have that happen? You have to shut up.
Well, that's it. Because ultimately, say you have your credit card. You go to the store. They don't even have to yell. There is no 1-800 number. You go there. Your card doesn't work. You're done. You're done. And they can do that. They can control you. How's this sound? What's it called? A passport for healthcare. They know they control your health. They control your money. And these ideas are being floated around. Then you're caught. Then the only way that changes is if there's like a mass uprising of 97% of the population, which ultimately could occur after time, after the people get mangled, like every disgusting revolution that's taken place from ad infinitum. Millions of people devastated. But that is when you're trapped, and we're inching closer towards
Joe,
that.
if you ask me, and I know I don't want this for you. I don't want this for me. I don't want this for our wives and our children. I don't want this, okay? Part of me, I really want your comments on this, and then we'll move on to Javier Milei down in Argentina. But I want your comments on this. Part of me says, bring on the pain. If pain is the no, I know it's a difficult. I know, Joe, but I'm listening to me. I think that in an act of love, I'm not saying that it's an act of hatred. I don't want people to suffer. I don't. You know that. We do the front line with Joe and Joe. All right. We don't want people to suffer. Okay. But ultimately, God's going to step in. And when God steps in, because we know this through human history, it's not pleasant. And
Joe, but the
you
thing
try
is,
to
it's not
tell
going to be
people
pain like a spanking. It could be pain like Mao. It could be pain like.
But aren't we going through that? Aren't we in the beginning stages of that now?
Well, hopefully that's why we do this, to bring awareness.
To head that off. Yeah.
But my point is, like, it's not. That's where I think sometimes people think, like, for instance, some people. I'll use an example, like they're going to move to the country.
What's that going to do?
They're going to not dig you out. How easy is that to do?
You got a bunch of people 30 years ago moved to Ruby Ridge, and the FBI went in there and shot them.
But that's my point. You're not. What do you think that they're not going to come and get you there?
Right.
Do you think that like my point is they could, if they have digital currency, just use that. They have you. You're done. You're done. You're done. And this is my point. It's not going to be. No one's escaping it. No one, unless you are basically part of that country club. And I got news for you. Even the politicians like Justin Trudeau, who thinks he's in, he's a puppet. He's a puppet. He's being used by them.
Oh, you know what the Bolsheviks did to guys like Justin Trudeau? You know what Stalin did to his useful idiots? Okay. They ended up in the gulag, or they ended up with a bullet in their head.
That's my point. They're just puppets. And every one of us, you have, at that point, you're trapped. And this is, you're crazy, Joe. Look at what's going on in Europe right now. They're protesting in Germany. Farmers, they're taking away their land.
I love it. The French are dumping manure right on the state house. I love it.
But at the end of the day, this is what we're one president away from that. One. Oh, yeah. Because it happened in Canada. Justin Trudeau, in 8 years, destroyed the middle class in Canada. If you don't believe me, do a little bit of Googling, and you will see.
But remember something, when you're talking about globalist elites, okay, we saw it as a microcosm, as we said many times at the front line with Joe and Joe in San Francisco. That's a microcosm of what the elites want. They want the super duper rich, and Joe in San Francisco, they are super duper rich. And then in that image that we pointed out on the show a few times, where there's people in the background that are at the outdoor cafe, and they're sipping on a Sunday afternoon, sipping Grey Goose and eating foie gras. And a guy in the foreground of the picture is a guy dumping on the sidewalk. That's the world they want. That's Barack Obama's world.
Well, I actually think they've destabilized cities to basically, sadly, have the government have to swoop in. That's also why are all these DAs not prosecuting crime all across America?
But the only time they ever swooped in to get actually the homeless off the street is when Xi Jinping went to
they're not going to swoop in to get them off the street. They're going to swoop in to basically be the salvation when people are on their knees begging the government to do it. Like you, because you can't get to work, because you can't eat.
No,
you see, that's my joke. This is where this is not like, oh, this is going to be a minor pain game.
Here's the thing, Joe, and real quick, we'll put a finer point on this, is that, but where are people, where are the effing priorities of the American people? What do you value?
They don't see it clearly because the press is not on their side, because the press is on their side. By the way, the Uniparty, they're all part of it. And people say, you're crazy. No, I'm not.
Right.
I'm telling you because it's happening in real time in the world. It's happening in real time in the world now.
Let's talk about
one president away. We get Gavin Newsom, Joe. I'm going to tell you right now.
We're finished.
What California, it will sweep across this whole entire nation. The middle class will be decimated. Decimated.
I don't
and I'm going to tell you right now. You get a digital currency in this country, we will suffer like we have never imagined ever.
Maybe that's
Joe,
that people need.
I think you're missing it on that because your family will starve. Do you want to watch your son die?
No.
Do you want to watch your wife die in front of you? But this is the type of suffering. You're talking about. I have no money.
Okay, but I'm going to push
back.
Get
a job.
I'm going to push back a little bit too. But at the end of the day, and remember, we are Catholic men, okay? But that's pain and suffering comes to an end.
I get it, but I don't want that. And
I don't either, Joe. I don't want that. They're forcing it on us, Joe. They're forcing it on us.
Well, people, that's where people, and I think this year, especially what's going to happen in 2024, no matter what happens with Trump, because I still say they're not going to allow him to be the president. I think it's going to open a lot of people's eyes. There are people who don't care. And sadly, I'll be truthful with you. Even if you despise Donald Trump and they do something in plain sight to basically say, you can't be the president when the people want him to be the president, you don't believe in democracy.
No, you don't.
You don't believe. I don't care what you say. You don't believe in democracy and you don't believe in America.
Joe,
and that is dangerous.
I've said a million times, Joe Resinello, and then we're going to move on. I've said a million times, okay? If Barack Obama, who I detest both as a president and a human being, and I have to go to confession for that, Joe. I have no love. I pray for him, but I have no love in my heart for him. I don't, okay? I think he's the source of all these problems that are going on now. If he was assassinated, I would be the first one to say, are you freaking crazy? You don't kill the president of the United States.
No, you don't
do that.
You don't kill anybody. And when a country starts doing that, again, chaos ensues. Chaos. A guy, just a friend of mine today, I won't mention his name, he may even be listening, mentioned to me on Facebook. This is a guy, a regular guy in the southern Bern County area. He's pinged me. He said, I think I'm going to get a gun. This is not like because
that's a matter of personal. That
no, but what I'm just saying is this is not that type. Like people are scared of what is happening. He was mentioning what was going on the border of Texas. Basically, there's a conflict going on between the federal government and the state of Texas. Basically, there's cries to say that the federal National Guard should take over the National Guard in Texas. That's a civil war.
Right.
Now, this is what I'm saying. Like, you're talking about an unstable. This is what happens in other places. It doesn't happen in America. And if you're for actions like that, you don't believe in democracy.
No, no, and that's what people like you and me, Joe, and a lot of people have to, out there have to point out. If you're for these things, no, you are not in favor of democracy. Now let's pivot for a second. Let's go to I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Javier Milei, the new president of Argentina. Now I've seen a few clips of him, Joe, where I go like this. I go, I'm not going to lie, okay,
Oh, he's got great
but
hair.
at the end of the day, he's a populist. He's an anti-globalist. I like to think that we can have something in common with him. So let's play the clip and we'll talk about Javier.
Do not surrender to the advance of the state. The state is not the solution. The state is the problem itself. You are the true protagonists of this story. And rest assured that as from today, Argentina is your staunch, unconditional ally. Thank you very much, and long live freedom. Damn it.
Long live freedom, damn it. He's right that he's speaking to the people. He's a populist. You are the protagonist. Joe, we are the protagonist. The antagonist, as we both learned in Catholic high school in freshman year, we learned about the difference between the antagonist and the protagonist. We are the protagonist because we're fighting for the good, okay? We're fighting for the good, the true, and the beautiful. Those who would make themselves our enemy are fighting for that which are lies. When you look at abortion, transgenderism, those are all lies. Hatred, okay, because they are the most racist people there are on the planet. Those people that we speak out against. So I'm kind of digging what Javier is putting down, if you know what I mean.
Well, what he says
I love your
after
thought.
that, when you cut, like what he says in that clip is, Argentina one time did not embrace this model of socialism, and it was a much higher standard of living. He says we were ranked XYZ in the world. After we embraced it as a nation, he was like, we were ranked like 140 in terms of like the economies of the world, and poverty embraced our people. And this is what I'm talking about. That's very real. That's real suffering. You see, Americans don't know what suffering is. Even poor people in America, we don't. Like, I'm talking about, you get your teeth pulled out on the corner. That's in the third world. You have a bad tooth, you go to the corner and someone
pliers. They got the
I'm
pliers.
being dead serious. I've witnessed it. In India, that's what they do. And so you don't, in India, they say, well, they don't say, the state runs the hospital, but you have to hire the nurse. So if you don't have money, you just lay in a bed in your own feces in the public hospital. This is how life is in parts of the world. We have no concept of that. We all have two cars. Even poor people who live in trailers in the middle of Oklahoma have vehicles. We eat.
Right.
Joe, life can get very hard. There are people in this world that live on less than $5 a day.
Most people in the world.
This is my point.
Most people in
And
the
this
world.
is what I'm saying. These ideas coming out of that World Economic Forum are dangerous. And these are not people like you and I talking on Rumble. They're powerful people. They're billionaires. They run companies, and they're all in. And
they're either billionaires or they have access to billions of dollars.
And here's the thing. They're not on people's side. And that's where I've been using the term we the people, because of the simple fact everyone's getting flushed down the toilet if they have their way. You're not going to hide in the country. You're not going to somehow get out of the supply chain because you're growing potatoes in the middle of Iowa.
Joe, let me ask you a question, because we're winding down. We got to bring the show to an end. But let me ask you this. I want to throw this over to you for a final comment. Okay. Middle class obviously is in the crosshairs of the, let's call it the oligarchs, because obviously conservative Republicans don't help us in that regard. They're a part of the uniparty, part of the problem. Okay. So the middle class, we're toast. The poor, they're already poor. If they are told they have to eat bugs for protein, they'll do it because they're already poor. And that's just the way it is. What do we tell people who consider themselves, and I think this is people who we're talking to, Joe, that we're trying to wake up and raise their consciousness? It's like, all right, dude, you might have a couple mil in the bank. You might have your home paid for. Okay. You got the kids' education paid for. But dude, when the crap comes down, you're suffering too.
Well, that's
You
what they don't get
along. It's gonna hit the fan for you too. And don't think whether I got 100 grand in the bank and maybe I'm not suffering, or maybe I got a couple million in the bank and I'm not suffering. Dude, when these guys have their way, you're going into the grinder like everybody else.
There's no question about that. Like, there's no question. First of all, how about if society breaks down and you don't have a rule of law in the street? We saw a little taste of that in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that guy on his lawn in St. Louis with a gun trying to protect his family.
BLM, get out off my property. And he got prosecuted for that.
If society breaks down, it'll turn into like tribal factions. It'll be like prison. You'll have tribal factions.
I want one answer from you, and then we're going to bring it to an end. But isn't it tribal factions now?
To a degree it is, but we still have a structure. And ultimately, if they, in plain sight, take out Donald Trump, however they do it, we cannot call ourselves a democracy. Mm-hmm. That word is a joke. I actually think it's a joke now to a degree, right. But based on what they have done, which in plain sight, people should be disgusted, whether you like him or not. Mm-hmm. And this is dangerous. We're going on a dangerous road. And ultimately, I got news for you, Joe. No one's getting out of it. If we go full Monty down this road, we will have a period of time in this country. Listen, after the Bolshevik Revolution, communism was in Russia for 90 years. That was not a pleasant 90 years for the people of that country.
No, it wasn't.
Do we want that?
No.
I don't. And that's why we have to protect democracy, not the term that's coming out of the mainstream media.
No, I agree with you. I would tell all those people who understand what a stock chart looks like. America's stock chart started out, let's go, I'm looking myself in the camera, here, and rose. America's stock rose and rose and rose and rose, probably culminated at about World War II, okay? At the height of our power in the 1950s, economic power, military power. But Joe, since the 1950s, the charts like this, and right now starting, I think, around the time that Barack Obama got elected president, it's gone like this. It was an arc. It got to here. Now it's down at the bottom. And guess what? It's up for guys who look for cheap stocks like us to try to pick up the cheap stocks of America and get out there into the culture war. There's many out there doing it, not just the front line with Joe and Joe. But I will ask you this, though. If you're out there following us on Rumble, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, anywhere out there, please share this video. I think this was a good conversation, an important conversation, at least a conversation that everybody out there should be having, whether or not it's in the front line with Joe and Joe style. It's also a conversation that y'all should be having out there because it's your future at stake. I'm with Joe Resinello. I don't want the pain to come. I don't. Joe's got 5 kids. I have 1. We both have wives. I don't want any pain and suffering to come into my house. But that's what they're bringing us. And unless you start opening your mouth, it's going to get bad. So at the very least, while it's still relatively cheap, which means open your mouth, do so in the public square. Don't cave in. That's what we got to do. That's what we have to get out there. So please follow us here. Share our videos. We love you for it. We love you for following us. Just to give a quick shout out, we got Elvis. We got Colin. We have Barbara joined us tonight. GTO Mama, all old friends that are joining us here. Joe and I are back on social media on Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Please, like I said one more time, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Remember, guys, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.